many cycles do we really have? Let's be honest, it's a thought we've all had, something that's a very serious topic. You don't know when is the last cycle. It could be tomorrow. It could be today. It could be, just about midnight by the time I'm recording this. You really don't know. And one of the things I think is super interesting about conversations that are had in this industry is the topic of death. Bodybuilders don't like to admit that they die. They don't like to admit that they live either. It's a really weird, convex situation. You see, some people think that there's just a line of bodies that are being racked up by bodybuilders who are abusing steroids. Other people tend to think the opposite, that there is no bodies being stacked up, and in fact they say, where is the bodies? There's none. The truth is that it's probably somewhere in between, but there's some really cool data that I wanted to show you guys, and I couldn't get it off my mind, so I decided to record later this night. And the question, and maybe hypothesis that we start this video with, is how many years will steroids take away from your life? Well, the recent review article came out in 2023 February, so not that recent, but pretty recent, and it quite literally shattered people's opinions on PED use and whether it is consequentially ending people's life, and specifically really butthurt and rage baited the guys who don't like people on androgens. And for the kids watching, that means steroids. The title of the study is Lack of Evidence That Doping is Harmful to the Health of Elite Athletes. But that's not all. The same author had another study, and in this study you see very clearly that people who took steroids or were likely doping lived longer than general population and lived longer than their own siblings. The author of these studies goes as far as to say that he doesn't believe steroids are what's killing athletes who take them. He actually believes that it's just the misuse of steroids, or rather the abuse of steroids, and more specifically how underground labs are producing steroids that are tainted products having heavy metals and microplastics and things like this within solutions, and then on top of this, they're mislabeling product as well. So somebody thinks they're getting one thing, and in turn, they're getting a completely different thing.
Hello, lover. Whoa! What the hell? What is going on here? Relax, stud.
One of the worst cases of this is a female hoping that she's getting Anavar, and instead she gets a fat whack of D-ball. That'll end a bitch's life, not literally, but just sort of metaphysically, because they now sound like a man, have a beard, and their clitoris is 2 inches longer after just 4 weeks. You get where I'm going. There's a lot of dirty shit out there, and this guy says, hey, clearly it's not the steroids killing people. It is far, far, far more clearly just misuse and mislabeling of steroid products. Now, Menno Henselman actually made a really great video on the subject. A video in which is probably far better than the one I'm going to make right now, and he's very concise. I think this whole video was summarized in 5 minutes, which is just fucking nuts. But he has some really good points, and he talks about this in a really objective manner, in admitting that there is very clear effects that show growth hormone, insulin, androgens aren't necessarily doing people the wrong way as we think they are.
Interestingly though, after the period of usage, or we can assume that most of those guys retired at this point after age 50, you can see that the mortality rate was actually lower in the elite athletes than in the general population. So it would seem that yes, there is an increased risk while you're using the steroids, but afterwards in life, the presumably healthier lifestyle of these athletes was enough to offset these negative effects in the long term and even make them still live longer than the general population. However, it's worth keeping in mind that even though steroid usage was very popular at this time, the dosages used were not remotely comparable to today's bodybuilders and elite athletes. It was relatively benign, short-term cycling, not full-blown blasting.
He mentions there that, simply put, steroids in people did lead to them living longer than general population, but also the duration of time that they used steroids was also the greatest susceptibility to comorbidities and death in life in terms of the both groups, right? So like if I took steroids in my 20s to my 30s, my chances of mortality risks developing at that age are much higher than just the general population person. But towards the tail end of my life, since I've kind of cemented away all of the things that I used to did and poured cement on, blew the bulldozer over it, flattened out the roads with a healthy lifestyle, the things I did, and this is all studies that are predicated on the fact that the people doing steroids ended up living an extremely healthy lifestyle after having done steroids. He also mentions something that's extremely important to understand. The people in these studies were not bodybuilders directly. They were performance-based athletes, and their steroid cycles were much shorter in duration duration and infrequent throughout the year. A standard bodybuilder tends to blast for 12 plus months out of the year. Some of you cruise, but to be honest with you guys, the people at the top levels aren't cruising at all. I will tell you firsthand from experience. And if they do, they're cruising with massive amounts of peptides going in simultaneously. So now ultimately, what does Daddy Kolton think? And sorry, I'm not a daddy. I am as close to the 14-year-old on Trenbolone as you can probably get. Will you lose years off your life using steroids? Will you regret blasting? Will you limit your ability to enjoy life? Will you limit your days to see your future children? Or will you live forever on the magic elixir of Tren? Ooh, what about growth hormone and insulin? I'm superhuman. So autistic. Oh, fuck me, I'm dying.
Oh, great. What's his name? Eric Cartman.
Cartman!
Let's be completely clear here. You are not going to live longer because you're blasting gear in your ass. It's not going to be the growth hormone and other peptides that are keeping you alive for years on end. The overwhelming reason that these people are living longer than general populations is because they generally live a healthy lifestyle. And when you're a healthy human who lived a very small portion of your life in a shitty way, but the grand majority of your life is healthy and not doing dumb shit compared to the 5 years you did dumb shit, of course you'll live longer than the standard American who does dumb shit on a daily fucking basis. You are not pounding McDonald's. Well, that's not true. In fact, a lot of you are pounding McDonald's in your fucking faces. I talk to you. I get on calls with everyone. This is a problem. Stop eating McDonald's. Stop it. It's bad for you. You should know this by now. One commenter said it specifically really well on Menno's video, and I quote,
"Of course, the active population that mildly uses PEDs lives longer than the non-active population. We need a comparison between physically active PED users and physically active non-PED users for a better look as to how much things differ, since these subjects is only relevant to people who are actually active and have greater life expectancy than the general public."
Absolutely right. The real test here would be to pair someone who is a high-performing athlete, the highest performing athlete, but completely natural, to someone who is the highest performing athlete, but completely not natural, taking androgens, peptides, you name it. How long is the non-natty person going to live who's living the healthy lifestyle in comparison to the person who's lived the healthy lifestyle for the entire period of their existence? I think they would live so much longer. Like, so much longer. It's very clear that being bigger isn't necessarily conducive to living long as a human being. There's a reason we kind of stopped around this, like, 6'2" being the peak height for most males area, right? Like, you don't see many guys walking around at 7 feet tall or 300 pounds naturally built with muscle. This just doesn't happen in nature because it wouldn't work very well. And it's not rocket science, because I've seen a lot of people citing these studies saying, "Well, I told you so. Steroids aren't as bad as you think they are. Ha 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 ha."
Me low eject mac will poison fucking masteron and testosterone and do 10 IUs of growth hormone and lose all of my hair and through all the oxidative stress start to turn 20 years older than I actually am and can't shit my guts right because they're so jacked up from all the oral steroids I'm taking, and my skin is purple, but it's fine. I'm gonna live longer because the study said so.
Here's the problem with that fucking mindset. You aren't just gonna take the abstract of a study and apply it to yourself as if you are the person the study's talking about. I want you to take something away from this video and make sure that you're fully loaded when you exit out of it, and ideally go to my next video, and before leaving for my next video, subscribing from this video, and even clicking the bell button, and then commenting the most raunchy emoji that you can down below in the comment section so I can copy and paste it to all of my clients right after this. For one, steroids are not the worst drug in the world compared to what people typically think. And I'm really glad that someone was actually able to be ballsy enough to publish a whole paper on this thing. But that doesn't mean you taking steroids makes you any better or worse than the general population. You're probably just about the average, and to be honest, the average is garbage. Secondly, there's a very huge disproportionate difference between abusing steroids and using steroids, as Menno's said. Most bodybuilders using gear are not using it conservatively, and nor should they. They're in a professional sport. They need to get a certain result to get a literal paycheck. But we are literally talking about a group of people who is known for abusing the most amount of milligrams of drugs possible for a singular competition. There isn't a sport in this world that does similar things that bodybuilders do. They also don't think about short term. They don't even think about long term. They just think about, well, if I take more gear, I'm going to get more gains, and that's just what I'm going to do for the next however long it takes, I guess. In this instance, again, more is better to get my result, so I just do more, and that means more volume, more food, more drugs, more volume, more food, more drugs, more volume, more food, more drugs, over and over and over and over again until you get to an endpoint, which probably isn't what you wanted in the first place. And the use of steroids by me, guys, really important here. The very large difference between use and abuse. The use is somewhere just beyond TRT. I'm talking 300, 400 milligrams, maybe. You want to look good, you want to feel good, you want to perform well, but you don't want all the awful side effects that come with being a bodybuilder. Like, there's a lot to be concerned with there. There's actually a video coming out for this very soon. I'm going to talk about exactly how you can take steroids and just be happy and healthy and mostly jacked and not have to lose your hair, get acne, and all this other bullshit that we have to deal with, so look out for that coming soon. But essentially, what I'm talking about the use is 300 to 400 milligrams-ish of androgens, right? You're probably going to be taking somewhere around 200 milligrams of testosterone and maybe 100 milligrams of masteron and, a few tabs of Anavar throughout the week. Maybe 3-4 IUs of growth hormone at best. And lastly, you're not doing the wrong thing if you decide to take steroids and not to play it safe. After all, my definition, like my literal philosophy upon life, is living is enjoying it, right? Enjoying life is defined as enjoying the passage of time as much as possible. And for some people, that literally does mean injecting grams of androgens and having a blast. If you die a little bit earlier from this, who cares? As long as you loved what you did and created amazing memories and you can cherish those memories, you have literally just become, in doing that, more wealthy than 95% of the population on this earth. People fail day after day to enjoy their passage of time, and if this one singular thing is what brings joy to a person's soul and they aren't harming anybody else's soul because of it, who cares? Go for it. But all I'm saying is don't try to justify what you're doing and make it seem like less of a problem with some random obscure study that has no relevance to you whatsoever. Put that shit in the gutter and get your ass in the gym and stop worrying about silly little things and trying to start internet arguments in rage bait. And that's about it, folks. Do your thing, man.